Welcome to More Than a Broker, the podcast that goes beyond the traditional definition of a logistics provider. My name is Andrew Elsener, co-founder of Spot. In each episode, we will dive into the stories of industry experts, keep you up to date on the highs and lows of the logistics marketplace, and introduce you to the people behind the advanced technologies that are driving innovation for brokers, shippers, and carriers within our industry. Join us as we explore the world of logistics through a different lens. This is More Than a Broker.
Drivers, start your engines!
Thanks for coming together. This is, it's neat. It's 15 years. I wanted to bring back a group of you to hash out the startup of a company, number one, because you guys were all part of the early journey. And just to have some key memories, you guys were all part of the beginning. So the foundation, and we're sitting today, it's kind of unique. We're sitting in the exact spot that we started this company in. So I still often have flashbacks. It was probably November 2nd or 1st of 2008 that I walked in this building. And I remember I took a lap around the building and we went all the way around. I remember telling the guy, Benton and Paul were the owners, and I was like, we'll fill this up. And the guy laughed because it was 2008, so the economy was terrible. So, and probably none of you even knew what freight was in 2008. So to see it today is pretty cool. And as we're coming on 15 years, it's a unique story. It's fun. I think if you look at the brokerage space, we're one of the few self-funded the size that we are today. We're one of the largest in the country. All of you were part of the early days where it was pretty bleak. So I thought I'd kind of go around. We can start just kicking around some fun memories. But I guess I'll start with you, Theo. You were probably the first, weren't you?
Yes.
We hired you out of college, didn't we?
Yeah, so came out of IU 2012. And I remember coming in for the interview. I'd actually asked for it, and you stumped me at the end of it. And you asked me why no one was hiring me. And I was like, shit. It's like, man, this guy just put a dagger into me. Like, I can't believe he asked me that. Answered it very poorly. Then I followed up with...
Probably two. It was a 2-page
email,
I think.
It was at least 4 or 5 paragraphs that I emailed you on...
as well?
There was a long resume, too, on why I'd answered the question wrong. And then I got an email that I got hired. So worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Robert, your journey is unique. In some respects, you started as an intern.
I did, yeah. So right in college, my senior year, I found this place on a job board. I came in, got interviewed by you, and you also gave me a stump of a question. As I said, I was a hard worker. I gave you the whole deal, and you said, well, yeah, Robert, nobody comes in and tells me they're a fucking piece of shit and going to get a job. Fair enough.
Some do now.
Some do now, yeah.
I thought I handled it well. Honestly, I was one of the last interns to end up getting a job in my thing. I remember watching going, shit, I don't know that I did so well, because everybody kept getting announced online that they were coming on, and I was like, well, I guess that's not going to work. But then I ended up getting the job and coming in and learning everything from you guys. So it's definitely a bit of a unique story, but an exciting one.
To that point, I was remembering in 2021, I walk up and the interviewers or interviewees don't really know who I am sometimes. So I'll sit down next to one. I sat next to a college kid, and he's wearing loafers, no socks, untucked polo. And I said, hey, can I give you a piece of advice? When you come in an interview, you're just supposed to dress up +1. Usually a tie and he said, oh man, shit, should I go home? I'm like, nah, I just practiced. Use this as practice. I said, it was good. Alex, you were probably next, weren't you?
June of 2013. And I trained under Dale. And I remember coming through here off that elevator. I didn't interview with you. I interviewed with GT. But you came up and greeted me. The moment the door opened, you're like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, well, good. And then afterwards, then we did, if you remember, you could select if you wanted to do lunch after your interview, or you could go down to the ER, the elbow room, and go down for a happy hour afterwards. So I went down there with Kylie. I'll never forget it. You'd walked in. I remember it very vividly this day. You'd walked in and followed 5 people. And those little tables were barely big enough for 4 to sit at. And everyone's huddled around you. And I'm like this kid on an interview, and I don't remember what I said, but you guys were like, you were writing something, and I interjected and asked a question about like what you guys were talking about, and you looked up to me like, "Who the heck are you?" Like, and you didn't even respond. I'm like, I screwed it. I completely screwed my chances. All right, well, I'm gonna have to call and tell my dad that I gotta go interview elsewhere.
When in the early days, you used to stay. We did a lot of freight at 24/7. So I mean, we're probably the largest in the country for raw materials, and I remember you dialing on that phone for loads out of Iowa.
That was my first.
Your mouse pad was so soaked with sweat because we were like, do not miss this load. Do not miss this load.
Steve Hall and I, because we started on the same day. It was like our training exercise back then, because back then we had like 3 days in there with you, and then we got thrown out to the wolves. Like we trained on Amcorp, and Chink printed off a carrier 4-in-1 list, and one was Ames to Norfolk, Nebraska, and Ames to Quincy, Illinois. And he went to Steve Hall. He goes, "Which one do you want to lane build?" And Steve was like, "I guess Quincy." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I would pick too." And he gave me Norfolk, Nebraska. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Learning that, it's just going to the middle of nowhere.
Right. It was a tough one. Dan? Danimal? You were a college grad.
I was not a college grad. No, I was experienced. I was at a liquor distributor, for almost 5 years. And my job was getting eliminated. And so I did what any sound person would do, and I applied to like 150 jobs that I didn't know anything about, and I had no idea what freight was, as you kind of alluded to start this whole topic. I had no idea what freight was. I didn't know what a pallet was. I knew nothing. I knew I needed to make money for my family, right? And I interviewed with you, and I think an hour after the interview, you called and so, "What are you doing? What do you want to do? Do you want to work? You want to come and say, I don't know, just give me a minute." I tried to slow play it a little bit, then the next day you called again. And so it felt really good, having an owner, a president, someone who wanted you, and to be talking with an owner and a president, right? So I thought it was amazing.
How many people do we have at that time?
Goodness. I know Theo and Bunny were there. There might have been 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
I would say at the most.
It was different
that.
Times.
Yeah, definitely a different time. And so, yeah, I worked
this office felt small.
But
big,
it was
sorry.
Yeah.
No, very big and empty. Sorry, not small.
Were you hired when this was done?
This was all done. Yeah, we had all the furniture here. Yeah. We had the little TV back in the back corner with PlayStation.
With the PlayStation that no one played.
No one ever played. Yeah.
So. Yeah, don't get caught on the PlayStation.
That was funny. Yeah.
It's a trap.
I remember
I
had a cousin. He was in town from Nebraska, and he walks in here one day, and it was before the Thursday or Friday before race weekend, and we are busy. And I mean, I'm on the phone. Everybody's on the phone nonstop. When that night when I got to the house, it was like 7:00, and he's like, "Damn." He's like, "That's intense. That's not normal." I'm like, because he works at a huge Fortune 100 company. He's like, it's just, I mean, no one left. It was busy. Brett, what about you?
Well, I had a different track here, because I was, I guess, the only
Shoe
referral.
salesman?
I was a shoe salesman back
Women's
in college.
shoes.
Women's
Right?
shoes.
Specialized.
Yeah.
You meet
That's
a
great.
lot of ladies.
Can I interest
Selling
you?
shoes.
6-inch heel, man?
It's your entire clientele.
Yeah. Okay.
lined up a lot of dates from that.
My first job out of college, I met a guy named Mark Bias, and we were selling copiers together. And I left, and we were selling Yellow Pages. And he called me, and I brought him on board to that company, and we did that for a few years. And then we both saw the writing on the wall at the time with the industry. So he came to Spot, and I went to Fifth Third Bank. That wasn't for me, and I reconnected with Mark, and I was like, "What do you think about Spot Freight?" And he's like, "Oh man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I think it's going to pay off. But it's a lot of work." And I'm like, "Are you trying to talk me out of this? Like, well, maybe I'll come and meet you for lunch." And
You wore a suit.
I did wear a suit. Well, I worked for the bank, but
right.
I always +1.
Right.
I could have taken that tie down a little bit. But I came in and looked around the place, and I thought it was fantastic. And then you happened to be here, so I think I chatted with you for a little bit.
I remember.
Who'd you interview with? Do you remember?
I think it was with you.
Oh, was it?
because
Were we going here or were we in there?
I think we were in here.
At the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you grilled me. It was like probably a 4-hour long. No.
I did once. I interviewed this kid from Ball State, and I said at the end, I said, I just don't think you can sell. And this person looked at me and said, "I think you're right too." I said, "All right, have a good one."
That wasn't Craig?
Craig's had a kind of a fun story here too, because I catfished him, and then now he's changed rules a couple times. And
Yeah, so I was catfished into Spot in a interesting way. So there was a website that was like a LinkedIn spin-off type. It was called Career Athletes, and I got a message from, like, similar to your story. I'm like, hey, the owner is reaching out to me. I got a message from Andrew Elsener, co-owner at Spot, and I was like, well, if this guy's reaching out directly, I'll respond to him, which is, hindsight, I would, no, I'm kidding. If he's reaching out direct, I'll respond. So we did an interview, and I still swear to this day that I remember I was sitting in my truck doing the phone interview. It was a GMC.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
no power windows.
And
The Cone Crusher.
made a couple valid points about where I currently was, but then also I swear he said that he was also an offensive lineman.
I looked like one.
Maybe he said he looked like, or whatever.
Your
it
words,
was,
not mine, but I agree.
So I came in. Turns out that it was not actually him that initiated the message, but the HR lady comes, hey, I messaged this person. He responded. You need to give him a call. So I came in and I interviewed with Shank first. You were out, and then I came back and I sat down with you, and the good old, I guess, Elsener wisdom at the end of the interview where he just calls it. I was doing something else on the side and was like, well, yeah, hey, working here, but I'm also working with this startup company. And he just goes, that's not going to work. And I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't even really explain to you the concept. And he goes, no, I'm just saying, like, it's not going to work. Like, you get 2 jobs isn't going to work. Which about a weekend, I'm like, yeah, you're right. So it was a good example of fully commit, 2 feet in and go.
Looking back, when you first walked in, did any of you have any thoughts like, oh shit, what did I just get part of?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Did anybody's parents or wives or anybody say, like,
Well, it was my first couple of weeks.
you took a pay cut?
Oh, I took a significant pay cut.
Yeah.
Again, I was told there was a lot of opportunity here.
Still trying to find it? 10 years later.
We'll get it. We'll get there.
It's coming soon. It's coming soon.
But, coming from outside sales and, outside sales with the bank, you took your lunch, you either go to a restaurant or sit in your car, eat, whatever you packed it, you're on the road. But I was doing check calls for Alex and Steve back then.
I don't remember that.
And it was the first day. It was Monday.
You did not miss check calls. I mean, that
I was hammering out check
Monday
calls.
morning check calls.
And then noon rolls around and I get up and I already packed my lunch. It's in the car. And I go out to the parking lot and I sit there and eat my lunch, come back. And Steve Hall says to me, he's like, wow, you were gone for a long time. I'm like, well, I was gone for an hour. And he goes, yeah, that's a long time. I go, I understand. I will be sitting here for lunch. I got you loud and clear.
well, this was a startup phase too.
It was a startup phase.
I mean, those were tough years.
I feel like it's like the energy that everybody's story is kind of similar as you walk in, right? And you've got the energy. Like I remember I shouted somebody for as part of the interview process. I sat down and just pulls up this board and it was just right away like, all right, all these are good. This is covered. I've got this covered. I still got to get all these. And it was just like, and everybody was on the phone. It was
Constant.
It was just an awesome environment.
I mean, I was straight out of college, and I remember thinking, like, I was young and naive. I had no idea. And I was just like, I guess this is what the real world's like. And then you'd be talking to your friends or family or whoever, and it's like, how do you articulate to them how busy your job is, right? Like, oh, you're stressed out? Like, I slept under my desk last night. I'm a little overloaded as well, It was like boot camp, really, for me.
It was definitely different. I mean, I came from the wine and spirits industry, and I thought the parties and things, like, people got after it there. It was a new level, at Spot, and people got their work done as well.
I'm a salesman, and back in the day, if you look at it, Shank would say, hold firm on rates, and so would Elsener. I'm like, all right, this is what we have to do. You had to fight for every dollar. Yeah. And it's like, Indiana to Illinois, backhaul lane. It's going to move at 350. Just wait.
It'll break.
It'll break. It'll always break. It always breaks. In the words of Craig Hunter, it'll always break.
What about you, Robert?
So I did a lot of moving around early on, basically filling in for people while they were out. And I vividly remember filling in for Theo, and it was like as soon as he'd come back, it's like a full-out audit on the race that I made. But I filled in for him a lot.
Take them
And I
off.
filled in for a lot of people, which I think got me a lot of really good experience. I have a little bit different path in carrier sales necessarily than some of you guys in account management, but it's been a wild ride. I mean, I remember being one of the first carrier sales reps.
You were
there
the
was
biggest.
there was no established department. So I go to bring a rate, and it's like, well, who's this asshole that's going to bring the rate? Like there wasn't a sourcing efforts. Like I remember starting on the Franklin, Indiana to Fort Worth, and really building that one.
Remember that?
That one, yeah.
I probably gave you a list of how many, a couple thousand at least.
Oh, at least. I mean, it was multiple tabs, thousands of carriers each one. It was just digging. Yeah. Took me a long time, but that was what really gave me a good start and made me realize that all the hard work that you do put in ultimately pays off.
I still remember we were very close. Like all of us were so close. Like there was a spirit.
We had no
still is
choice.
today. Like, yeah, you could feel it. Like it's very palpable. I mean, to see like our growth story across the country, it's pretty unique, but it all is driven by the people. But I still remember the memory of we were trying to get to $1 million a week. And when we hit, I swear to God, I probably had 5, text messages, a bunch of emails. Like we did it. Those were, some fun times. Do any of you have any memories that stick out, like achievement memories that we did as a team? That
I just remember like the team mentality. You remember when the flu just went through the office?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a question that we weren't going to come into work.
Yeah, and I just remember it was day one. Like half the people were out. Like, oh, they're not coming in, but we got all this freight, and it was like, okay, well, let me see what I got on the board today, and let's see what else we can get from these other pods. And then day 2, even more people were out. And I'm like, oh boy. Well, let's see if we can't manage this thing with half a dozen people here.
Yeah, people would come back on the other, like they would get over it, and then they're in. The people that were in are now out, but it was a good rotation.
We probably were out 2/3 of the office for a week straight because it just kept spreading. And
Or remember when they cut the internet
power?
line? It wasn't the power, it was the internet.
Oh yeah, they cut the internet line.
And that was over 24 hours.
Oh, I didn't sleep for 2 days.
Yeah.
Horrible. Oh man, we
Like legit fax machine.
Yeah.
Like not, yes.
You remember Shank? The office was an old office, and like I said, the building we're in today has got to be. It's old. We had access. So Shank took a hammer from home and broke in the door.
D-mark where the
To the
internet
D-mark
comes
where the
in.
internet comes in to start finding it. Then he's flipping panels. I leave my house on the south side, so we're now both downtown. We went in the basement. There's rats, like it's a dirty trying to find out what's going on.
I've been down there once. It's gross.
We started calling all of you, and I took spreadsheets and we rebuilt. We called the company back then. We didn't have our own software, so we called the company. They sent us a snapshot, like the quickest one they could get us. Then I had to call everybody to get it. I remember it was 2 days before we really
We were back up,
got to sleep.
And wasn't it cut like?
It was kind of just right in the back. So we
Yeah,
had
by the garage.
no access, but we had to rebuild every single load. It was unbelievable, like how tired you were. It was.
We got it
And we
done.
didn't even, like,
we got them all moved.
our whole system was like here too. So like even being like somewhere else trying to get remote into it or whatever, like
Good.
no internet to that. Like that was the lifeline.
Citrix.
Yeah, but you
that's right.
couldn't.
Did we have
You couldn't get on
the
because
Citrix
Citrix
server
lived
was
here, though,
incredible.
right? I don't think you could get to it because it was all.
You couldn't
the
remote in,
brain
could
is
you?
here. I don't think so.
No.
You could remote in with an application.
Oh, yeah.
Another.
I remember that. Yeah.
But it was one screen.
Yes.
It was pretty bad.
But not when it was down.
But not
That's
when it was
right, 'cause
down.
the-
You could remote in if it was up, but if it was down
But-
from here, like
I think
Dead
Shank
water.
eventually got the software running on his computer, and then we had it stationed. I think you were running it, and you were running off of the mobile,
It was a mobile
Wi-Fi,
hotspot.
the
That's
hotspot.
right, that's
Thank
right.
you.
Oh yeah.
And then Craig, like you'd book a load, you'd get it to Craig. Craig would book it on the computer
That's right.
and send it running off of a cell phone, and that's how we ran the company for
2 days.
like 2 days.
I remember when that came back on. That feeling it was like, oh my, we're back.
Oh,
Well, then that's when Shanker, you had the idea to get like backup generators or batteries if this ever happened.
We bought
again,
the
right?
ones
Yeah.
batteries.
Uh-huh.
The best part was there's this in the servers. There was another time this happened back then, and the IT company that was monitoring saw that once 3 of these blades like had an issue, it would shut down. There were 7 of them, shut them all down to protect them. Well, they saw 2 were down on a Friday. They said it's impossible that the third would go down. Sure as hell, it goes down on Sunday. We sat in this office again for 24 hours. Like,
I think I remember that.
Awful. I was thinking back, when we set the goal, I remember to when we got over 700 million in revenue, and we were gonna celebrate on Georgia Street. What was that night like?
Well,
I don't remember.
We celebrated for sure.
I hoovered back with the crops on the floor of the minivan.
I do think it was fun to see the spirit, the people that everybody came together, the music, it was one movement.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you tie it back to that story of
Everybody. It was 700 people.
you pull it back to like when we were shooting for $1 million in a week or whatever, and then like the cool part about that milestone and that party was like all of us remember when we're shooting for $1 million,
$1 million
right?
a day.
Remember when we were doubling revenue
$1 million a week,
every
yeah.
single
A
year, which was then I think everybody's eyes were opened at once. So it's like, oh well, you can do that from like 10 to 20, 20 to 40. Then you get into like some of these bigger numbers and just the growth.
Everyone was on the same page. Like everyone wanted to get $1 million a week, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, man.
and then once we did it, it's like, great, what's next? And then I remember going
100
in.
million.
It's like, well, yeah, but then it's like this $700 million party. It's like there was no doubt in our minds that we were going to hit it, right? Like, yeah, it was going to be crazy as shit, but it's like everyone was on board, and once we hit it,
We knew we were going to,
Yeah,
just because
100%,
the company's always been like, next level up.
I think that one of the cool things, like very early on, that led to that everybody being on the same page and just the team was, like at the end of the day, if you had your freight covered, and it's like you would almost start to leave like 30 minutes before you were planning to leave because you would check in with that, like you'd check the board and see, all right, does anybody else have freight that needs covered? And you'd see somebody pinned down with 10 loads left and it's 4:45 or whatever, and you're like, how can I help? Which ones do you want me to work on?
That was the fun part about a startup.
yeah.
Like when you do a startup this way, it was a bootstrap startup. Everybody came together, but you didn't have to. That was remember nights ordering pizza. Or the night on 4th of July. One of our customers sent over like 10 loads on 4th of July. And he called me and we were talking. I'm like, all right, I'll be down. And so we sat here and covered the loads.
Yeah.
And then, stopped by the ER. And
Yeah, had to go get a lunch.
You're here. Why not?
That was my forward.
Like I remember people would say like, you work Monday through like you work 6 days a week, like what? And but I'm in my early 20s and I'm like, no, I love it, because then we go get lunch, And it was like the end, it was the grand finale of the week. You worked your butt off and then you got to go and have a little liquid lunch.
The service standard was what like
Insane.
I'm probably most proud of is that, in this group, like no one, you did not let down
No.
each other, the customer, the carrier, like it did not happen. Is there any stories that stick out? I remember Craig driving his customer sign on his truck up to deliver. So he was a carrier in the system. Is there any ones that stick out that are just a sign of like what we do, the little things right?
I remember it was a Friday and we were coming out of a bad stint. Like I was not making commission and I was just coming out of it and getting into the green, and I'm like, finally, a little bit of a residual income, a little extra on top, I guess I should say. And it was the end of the day and my customer called me and said, hey, I haven't seen the first of the loads out of PA. They were in Texas and we're running that this weekend. And I'm like, scrolling, that feeling when your stomach kind of drops and you're like, oh boy. And long story short, it was determined it was an EDI error. And it was not a great market. I knew I was going to lose my rear on the 12 or 15 loads. It was like 15 loads. And I remember walking outside, you were with me, and I cried. I was so defeated. It was at the end of a crazy week. I had zero left in me. And I just like put my hands on my head like this. And I was just like,
You're breathing in.
Damn it. And Elsener goes, stop. We're going to go upstairs. Stop. We're going to get this done. And it was cool though. It was like one of those moments I think back. Like you had stayed. A lot of people had stayed.
And we got it done.
Everyone got to work. We're just going to get these covered.
Yeah.
And we got half of them or so covered. And then we came in Saturday and got the rest. But You know, it's just like one of those moments where you're just extremely short-sighted, and it's just like the straw that breaks the camel back, and you're like, oh my God, the world's ending. You know,
I had strung together like multiple weekends where it's just like I had loads picking up Saturday and Sunday, and I felt like in the gauntlet. And I remember sitting there on a Friday, and I had the loads already. It was probably 2:00. And usually on like a Friday, like vibes are high, people are excited. Yeah. Andrew walks past my desk, and I'm sitting there staring at my screen, and I'm scrolling through available loads. Of, like, scrolling. And he just goes, "How's it going?" And I just looked at him. I was like, and then I just looked back at my screen, and I scrolled back up to the top, and then I looked at him again and scrolled down a little bit, and he goes, "What is that?" I have to get all these covered. He goes, "Okay, we're going to get them covered." It's a similar thing. He just goes, "All right," pulled everybody together. We go into the conference room, and I'm still standing there like, I don't even know, like, this may be it. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'm not a freight broker. And he goes, "All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate. We're going to divvy these up to all these people. Everybody's going to help. Every time you cover one, ring the bell. We'll celebrate, and we'll get everything out." And I remember that. That was Saturday. It was awesome.
I think I have a similar story to that. Me and Brett were helping launch a brand for a customer. Let's just say that. We were one of 2 brokers that were launching this nationwide brand.
Probably how many shipments a week?
Oh, hundreds.
At the time,
this was a lot. I would say probably 300 shipments a week. Yeah. And that's a lot. That was a lot of shipments for us. It was just Brett and myself. And I was gone one Friday. And if you don't know this, I am without a doubt a better broker than Brett. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. There's
just debatable.
Yeah, there's no debate.
Without a doubt.
But we had probably, I would say, 70-ish shipments available out of one shipper in one day that all needed to be covered. And it was just Brett. And so it was either Brett or Andrew. Someone got involved when I was out. And ultimately, Bobby was there too. Bobby was crushing it. And it's like, there was probably half of Spot working on loads out of this shipper in this one market.
We had like 80
we got him covered.
across Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's what it was.
In the fall.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough.
In 2014.
It was not, yeah. But we got it done. We all came together. Someone was out, and it's just the way it was, and it was awesome.
I remember seeing the revenue reports during those times, and I looked at it, and I was like doing a decent amount of time off-site at a customer.
That's right.
And so I'm like outside looking in, and I look at it, and I'm like, something's wrong. Like, is there a glitch? I feel like I reached out, I'm like, guys, what's going on? Did you have duplicate orders in there? No. It's taking off.
They're sending them.
It was awesome.
Well, there was a couple projects which was neat. Like looking back, one of my favorite stories, we were experts in JIT freight, where we, through sheer passion, like we figured this thing out. Like we had SOPs for recoveries. We had number of carriers. We had routing guides with ratio splits. Like we're a little bit psycho about the job. But I remember we won this one contract, and I'll never forget. Like we had no business, but we would sit in the conference room and tinker till 3 a.m. I mean, it was insane. I remember one night I came up with this formula. But I remember on the plane ride home, Alex looked at me and he goes, "Well, Ace, how are we going to do this?" And I remember saying, "Well, that's a good thought." But everybody came together. It was back again on another story of just like a group of people so addicted to the process that the thing went. And anyway, I think like of entrepreneurs, you have to be addicted.
it was always our mantra, right? Like we would always go get the business and then figure it out. Like that's just, we didn't know any different. That's just, and even to this day. But I mean, we're a much different company now. I mean, now we have so much infrastructure behind us. In the earlier days, it was so different.
We had no resources. That was the best part. We were resourceful as hell. I mean, I remember one company we were working with, they were loading trucks in like 3 or 4 hours. And we come in and do this analysis on the cost impact. We fly down to their facility. We show them dwell time analysis. And at the end, like, well, what do we do? Like, we'll hire one more forklift driver. The guy's like, that's all we have to do. Like, yep. That's all you got to do. And it changed it.
Well, yeah. Looking back, that's a good example. Like most providers, broker or asset would have just said, hey, you know what? It's not for us. Out of that facility. I know exactly what you're pointing to. And there were times where trucks would wait literally 24 hours to get loaded. But we took the extra steps to dive in, give a breakdown of the hours it was happening. We could pinpoint and paint the picture of exactly what needed to be done. We flew down there, met with them. Whereas I think most would just kind of turn their nose and say, hey, we're just going to kind of exit. Wish you the best luck.
Or they would just charge them, right? They would just charge like increased rates or
even
retention.
to this day, it's we're so embedded, and especially back then for such a small company, we were so embedded. Like that same customer routinely would tell us, you guys know more about our operations.
Yeah, we were so addicted to
and
operations.
That gave me so much, that would get me so amped up. I was so proud of that statement when they would say that. It spoke to like how embedded we were.
I forget where we were. We took somebody out to dinner. They stopped by and saw us. They were not in our industry. They were not part of our company. And we're at the Elbow Room. It had to be the Elbow Room or somewhere. And we're talking about freight. We're fighting about freight. We're talking about ideas. Shank had his laptop up writing code. And these people are like, all you guys do is talk about work. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what else to do.
That's all we have in our life right now. So.
Literally all we had in our life. That was like back to that passion. That energy and passion was crazy.
And I think that was like momentum too, right? Because you didn't want to you didn't want to be the one that
let anybody
down or to be the example of what not to do, right? It's like, this is the way we do it. I know that if I don't do it this way, I'm letting everybody in the room down. And the room was pretty small at that time.
Well, we always said yes. We said yes to everything, and then we'd figure it out. Like it was, when we decided to create software, I remember sitting at a table with Shank, and we were talking, and I'm like, well, what would we do if we were going to be the best? And he's like, well, we do it. All right, let's do it tomorrow. Let's start this thing. And I remember we're developing software the next day, and getting into 3PL management and everything else that we do today. It's like there's just that addiction to getting the process better. If you guys think back and describe Spot today versus 8 years ago, 9 years ago, what do you think's the biggest thing that's not amazes you, but it's just different?
Well, I was going to go back to your point that you were just making with, we were a startup, always saying yes. Like if you were presented an opportunity with the customer, it's yes, I'll figure it out in the back end. I remember the first customer I brought on about a year into it, approached me like, hey, do you know anything about hopper bottoms? Oh, sure. Absolutely. Great. Hey, I've got like 400 loads here.
And you barely know what dry vans are.
Yeah. Like, well, let me get you a quote. And well, can you put that in per ton? I'm like, oh.
Was that you? Did you do
sure
that?
can.
Yeah, it was Robert.
That was Robert.
Yeah. So I give a Bobby down there, and I'm like, hey, man, we're going to figure this one out quick because I already committed to this.
I remember figuring it out with you. It was definitely a challenge, but we knew we weren't going to fail the customer.
Yeah. We were talking per ton.
With that load board for
a lot of different lingo.
Because I dabbled in hoppers for a while too.
Shipbulkloads.com.
Yeah. Is that what it was?
But we bailed this guy out of his situation,
yeah.
And we still talk every day. He'll never forget that.
Brett was always one that would go after a new opportunity. I remember the one time he had me working for, I don't know, it was about a week on a potential move of a family over from the Middle East? And they were going to bring some super exotic car. It was like a whole deal.
Probably pay by credit card.
Loads of load. All right.
Loads of load.
I can charge whatever I want. Just kidding.
Did you ever, thinking back to your first days, did you ever think you'd have a team in the scale that you guys are today?
I never thought it would be as big as it is, right? Like when Brett and I first potted up, I was like, oh yeah, we'll do these few customers. This is great. And then you were like, no, you need to hire someone. We can be bigger. We can do more. We can do more. And so, and now Brett.
How many do you have now?
We have 6 total people, including Brett and myself, and we're tapped. I mean, it's cool.
Might have to hire somebody else.
We'll see. Tamper those. But yeah.
We're not going to shelter our way to success.
No, but honestly, without that push from you, it's like, no, you should hire. I would have never even thought about it. I'm just like, all right, well, I just have to work 22 hours instead of whatever. So it's just.
Well, it was never enough, right?
You could always do more. You're like, I can stay 30 more minutes and get an extra load, or schedule a few more of these, or do a couple more check calls, or you could always. The day was never done.
No,
you could always do more.
I feel like one of the frustrating things in that was like you would see like yourself scheduling every load, booking every load, like building every load,
getting every load from the customers,
getting every load,
right?
And then you bring somebody in, and then maybe they like miss like scheduling an appointment or something like that, and it's like, I used to do this all by myself. Like, what? This is your one task. But it's been cool to see like the growth of all the groups as they've expanded, right? And like been able to ultimately like bring on more and process more.
Because Robert, you were the first. But then you had that other guy that sat by you. I forget his name, but now there's 100.
Yeah, probably close to 150 or more carrier reps. So it's definitely grown a lot since we first started.
And now we're in.
Since you were the department.
Do you still have the original spreadsheet that you used? The Franklin.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Do you really?
You should give that to every new
You
rep.
should. That should be like
that would
in
be
the
awesome.
Well,
Think
we
about
don't use
that.
spreadsheets these days.
That's right. We have a software.
It's pretty fancy.
Well, I was thinking back to this is a great story too, and I forget Theo, your name. So your name's Theo Mascari.
Theo?
Yeah. So name's Theo Mascari, but I go by Dale Steele. And there's I got the nickname. There's a liquor distributor, Badger Liquor in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We were shipping Zing Zang Bloody Mary mix at the time. Called to introduce myself as I took over this account. I said, "Hey, this is Theo. I'm going to be scheduling appointments with you. Nice to meet you." I said, "Yeah, Dale." I said, "Oh," and I corrected him. Said, "No, my name's Theo." And he goes, "Yeah, Dale." I was like, "All right, fuck it, it's Dale." So I'm interacting with this guy, over the phone, and didn't exchange many emails. So Andrew walks by one day, and he hears me on the phone talking to Len up there, and I said, "Hey, it's Dale with Spot." And I look at Andrew; he's pissed off. He's like, "Why are you telling this guy your name's Dale? Your name's Theo." I'm like, "Hey, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll explain." And Andrew ends up realizing it's the coolest nickname ever. So Dale kind of stuck after that, and then Steele. There was a lot of people that would call in and ask for Mr. Steele over the phone. I don't know why they thought Theo was Steele. Maybe a barrier there, but that's how Dale Steele kind of got combined to have a great nickname.
That's what I'm looking for, Vincent.
Dale Xander.
Where's Dale Xander at?
Dale Xander, please.
And Theo, your team now is what? You started with one.
Yeah, so it's one. We have 6, including myself now. I remember being pushed. I got to 100 loads a week by myself, scheduling, order entry, moving them. And I was scared to hire someone.
You were stubborn.
I was super stubborn. Hired someone, immediately doubled the book of business, hired another person, grew from there. And it was just never ending. Early on, we didn't have a brand. We always said yes. So I was the weekend guy. So I just took every weekend load that I could get. And as we continued to grow, I'm like, weekend freight becomes weekday and contract freight. We're competing against all these other people. So I kind of had this growing book of business to build off of and hire more people. To this day, and my team would say this, we're still like weekend freight. Like we say yes to everything. We're moving 70 to 80 loads every Saturday and Sunday. And to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we just gained 2 business days against all of our competition. Like, keep moving it.
No, Alex, your team is a lot.
Well, yeah, it's
Don't
grown,
tell the other guys.
It's grown over the years. No, I remember my early years. I remember thinking, like, man, can you imagine doing $50 million a year? And we about tripled that last year. But like, it goes back to like Elsener would always hire, and we would all fight it, like, because in our minds we're like, I think we're good, but he had the vision. I'll give you the credit on, like, he would see that, look, we've got a lot of large shippers underneath you, and we can do more. And we just needed to increase our bandwidth, because you sort of get this tunnel vision of, I've got my piece of business, we're good. But when you have the time to kind of clear some of the day-to-day clutter out, that's when we really saw the growth kind of take off.
Looking at the growth story, it's fun because it's organic, it's natural. We didn't acquire anybody. No one handed us anything. We didn't buy a customer list. All the tech we've created, everything's done in-house. What do you think it is that's been the difference?
It's the people. I mean, what I find amazing about this, I've been doing it for 10 years now. What is supply chain? It's 1/12 of the U.S. economy, right? And so that sounds huge, but when you actually get into it, it's really small. Like, everybody knows everybody, and like if you do the little things right, and you just do a good job and you put the customer first, like people leave or people talk. And it's amazing how many people I've ran into over the course of the years, just from, something I did, a referral or someone talking, 2 years ago. And then, hey, I get a phone call out of the blue. It's really neat.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. It's without a doubt the people. I mean, you come in on your best days, you can lift others up, and on your worst days, there's someone there to lift you up and help you and help up the loads. The camaraderie, before and after hours, the long nights, the weekends. I mean, it's just unexplainable.
Especially early on, it was a journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember always calling too, because and you never wanted me, having to spend time on your stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I got it.
I wanted to show I could do it. Yeah.
I got it every single time. That's not common.
The people and culture. That's what we've mostly been talking about in a nutshell, right? Is that culture in the earlier years. If we had to go back and do it, we would have to replicate that. That was the biggest piece, is the culture we created here where no one's going to sink. We're all going to just keep growing and keep growing. And I remember sitting in our QBRs with customers and saying, look, we did $100 million last year. We're a big player.
Yeah. But we were so addicted to the people like that. I mean, it was amazing. That's all we talked about. I mean, it still is.
I feel like it fostered it would foster, as we would hire, people would come in and they would either see it for everything that we saw it for, or they would feel it and they would stick and they would be successful, right. Or they would be like, just,
you guys are nuts.
You're nuts, and they'd be out quick. Yeah. And it was good. I mean, it was good. It was like we bring them in, they'd stick and grow. Or and then now we've got more and more growth.
That, I mean, you would feel it. Feel that. The other unique thing is we only have 500 some customers. Most brokerages our size of $1 billion have thousands of customers. We are laser focused. Our customer retention rate is 99%. That's not unheard. It's unheard of. It's not normal. So
the people is what it all comes down to, and the accountability that the people have. That's the game changers. We hire anybody that comes in, especially to the carrier sales department, that have outside experience. The first thing they come in and say is, it is different here.
Yeah,
the accountability that you have and your employees have over these customers is unmatched compared to other carrier sales departments that I've been a part of across the country. So it's definitely refreshing, and I think that's one of the reasons that we've been able to kind of get our department up to where it is now and then continue to grow this thing.
I would say that's been a big part of creating culture. Our service expectations are probably abnormal. We're not perfect, but just we didn't miss. Did not miss it. There's always a truck.
No, if we did miss, we would be damn certain it didn't happen again.
No,
in the same shape or fashion.
It wasn't a fun day.
If our customers kind of knew how crazy we were behind the background and just taking on the amount of business we did, I know what account you're alluding to. That when we landed that account, and I was like, how are we going to do this?
Remember so many times where it's just you're scared to fail. You can't fail. It's not going to happen.
It wasn't an option.
Everything in your power, you're going to pull things out of your pocket, whatever you got to do to get the job done.
Your mind changes. This is kind of a weird story, but my brother's sick, and I remember he was supposed to get blood dialysis, and so they connect tubes to your carotid, and they run the blood out, clean it, filter it back down. And I came in the morning, and they couldn't get the tube to stay open. And he's sitting up in the bed. He's like, they didn't do it. And he's losing his mind because the ammonia's so high. And I remember I saw a piece of tape, a roll of tape sitting on the counter. And I said, well, lay flat. And I had the nurse come over, and I'm like, what if we tape this to his forehead and then run it out the back and tape it to this thing? And he's like, I mean, we can try it. And this guy is a great nurse. I love him. And we tape it to his head, pulls the thing through and opens the line. And we ran dialysis for about 4 hours. The doctor walks in and is like, she's like, it's working, but we're going to send him to surgery to get this fixed. But it's that mentality, you go through all the stuff that we do day to day. I have that's one thing about this company is the spirit of getting something done. We will not, will not happen. I think that was kind of the fun. I often think back to, we had a very Fortune 100 shipper, and I wake up kind of early. And so he sent out a load request at 4 a.m. and I called into our after hours team. They covered the load, and he sent an email out asking who this company was because we were doing very little with this. And he said, "Can you drive to Chicago tomorrow?" And I drive to Chicago the next day. And he's like, "Hey, can you fly out to Texas the next week?" And I remember the solution I did was I drew 3 circles: the shipper, the receiver, and us. And I said, if we all just have one email, we're going to win. And it worked. Like this shipper was one of the worst receivers in the country. All of a sudden, they were the best, and like all we did was talk. So tech.
Well, I was going to say what I really like is all throughout my career the autonomy to trying different things. There was no like structured. This is how you have to do it. It was I've got this idea. I'm going to try it out. Hey, my goodness, that worked. And then we'd replicate it, or like we could change it up. But it was never like this is the one way you have to do it. It was so rigid. It was like you took in all these ideas from everybody, and then we continually, throughout the years, everything just kept getting better and taking that idea and making it better.
Well, I think back, you guys, I remember you guys going into a large shipper, competing against multi-billion-dollar companies and providing a solution that saved them a ton of money. Again, like we had no business winning that thing, but it's that passion, that energy that
someone looking at it differently.
Just obsessed with it.
Yeah.
How has tech changed? You remember back to our, and it's been a journey. And I think Theo, you've probably been, or Dale, you've been probably the best supporter of the tech evolution.
Big tech guy.
How do you think it's changed?
I mean, it's certainly changed for the better. I look back to how we were sourcing carriers. It was a very manual process, API integrations and quoting. Like, you really couldn't survive in this day and age if you guys wouldn't have done the investment and did our own proprietary technology. Like, we just couldn't compete. Saves us a ton of time, like manually quoting nonstop throughout the day, made our lives certainly easier.
For sure. It's been easier.
Yeah.
But the journey's not been.
Oh, no.
I mean, you think back to like a perfect storm, or you say golden days or whatever, but
yeah,
when you would put a driver's phone number in, then it would instantly light up green. Right?
That was the best. When they were when it would light up
Mm-hmm.
green, that was just like
The happy
thank
times.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, baby Jesus.
And then, apparently that was abused because like everything changed, right? There was an actual regulation that came out that said you can't just ping based on a cell phone number anymore. And then you have to go into like developing an app and
Oh, man.
all that.
I mean, the evolution of the app. I mean, Rob, you probably see the most change in technology. I mean, from your seat, it's had to change a ton.
It's definitely changed a ton from the time where we first, it was just put the phone number in, and it almost always would just ping the driver. It wasn't super close, but to developing our own personal app that obviously works pretty well, and we can show our customers exactly where the loads are at. The technology and trying to get the carrier base to adapt to it has probably been the biggest challenge. A little bit challenging to get your own employees to adapt technology. People that have been people that have been in the truck for years and years that don't want the government tracking them. Well, I got news. You got a cell phone.
Yeah.
You can already do that.
Like we care what they're doing.
All
on
the
Saturday.
different little things, and getting the carrier base to truly adopt it's probably been one of the more challenging ones, but we're starting to see a lot more success and a lot of carriers that truly appreciate what we're bringing to the table once they finally start getting ingrained with it and start using it. But it does take a little bit of time to get there.
It's been interesting watching too, because we're 80% contractual. That's probably the most amazing thing that you guys have done is you built the business the right way. And I know there's so many years where you probably hated me, but it was the right thing because we didn't go play in the market, and we would execute on what we said we were going to do. I mean, I remember in 21. I mean, you probably were almost in tears again.
You cried.
November. Well, it was rough.
I do more business than you do.
Here we go.
But I remember you coming down, and you're like, we had contract rates on file. We were honoring them. And I remember we were losing millions of dollars. And you're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, we're going to execute the loads. That's what we're going to do. I mean, no one. Yeah. Like,
Get the freight covered.
but everything like the contractual piece, that was the hardest part. Like, I remember talking to other owners of brokerages, and they were making all this money in 21, 22, and you're like, wow.
It's hard not to be distracted by it. Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
that'd be
flip the
nice.
book. But it's just like that. The partnership has been something that I think has been the most amazing. The thing we do on a steady pace, like we've executed at a high level for a long time.
I feel like servicing the contract through that, right, when it was bad, when rates were bad,
Mm-hmm.
gives you the opportunity to service the contract the following year or the following contract term, right? It
pays dividends for
pays
years to come. Yeah. What would I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Going back since inception to today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I probably
Hiring Craig or
Take that other job, Craig.
I don't know. You know, I think a lot of times, like we're 15 years in, we probably were so short-sighted at times because we were so far in the business. But at the same time, like I meet all these people across the country and say you need to be like this pie in the sky visionary. I'm like, but if you don't know what the hell you're doing day to day, like how in the hell do you love the business? Like you got to love the business. And sometimes maybe we were too psycho. You know, we were so addicted. I mean, looking back, like you never see your family, like you're gone all the time. Like that maybe, but I don't know. That's a good question. Let me ask this. Would you do a startup again?
It was fun, man. I had fun.
I would.
Yeah.
I think that's the only place I would go if I were to start. Because I think it's been so unique being able to think kind of what Brett was saying earlier, like something doesn't work, come up with a new idea, you guys hear it out, we go develop it, we go run it, right? And that's been really neat compared to a lot of friends that I have that work at other places that are a little bit more corporate and like they just have to do what they're exactly told to do and that's it.
I don't know.
I'm with Bunny. I don't know. I'm like,
If Elsener and Shank were driving the ship, I would. I'm not just saying that.
Agreed. I would agree.
No, but like if I sit here and think about it, I think it would drive me nuts if anyone did it another way. We've done such a journey in the past decade.
You almost went nuts.
Many would argue I am nuts. I don't know. Like I think it would like really annoy me if someone was doing something differently. Like I would have to do it the exact same way we did it.
But I mean, I look back to we would talk on the phone almost night, a lot of times at night, at 9 o'clock at night about what we're going to do the next day. All work related, not about.
Thank you for saying because I wanted to. Thank you.
We had a couple personal calls.
Laying in bed, what are you watching?
Yeah, there was never there weren't many pleasantries exchanged.
No.
I've taught myself now to say,
what's wrong? What do you need? What's wrong?
I noticed I caught myself because we're so like to the point. It's like I caught myself now like I got to slow down and say, hey, how was your day? It's like, where's the load?
I think I would do it. I would do it like if it was like, all right, you have to stop Spot right now and an opportunity to restart everything with this crew.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
10 would have to be the same people.
This crew 10 times out of 10. But I feel like also like we probably would stick out, like to your point, in your friends with like in a like structured like corporate role. We go in and we would have ideas and we'd be like, all right, let's move. What are we doing? And like have to go through 7 different committees to get approved.
You were 22 when you started?
Straight out of school, so yeah.
What would you do different?
Well, I would have saved my money more in my earlier years.
I tried talking to you. Remember the Saturday you called me, Ace, I'm buying a boat. Like, absolutely not.
No, you're not. He's like, what are you going to pull it with?
Oh, shit.
I'm going to go buy
a truck.
Yeah. I know a buddy that's got a truck.
Absolutely not. You're not buying that boat.
Craig, before I answer that.
Cone crusher.
Yes.
Yeah, the cone crusher. I call it the Craig crusher. You picked me up one morning.
I picked out, yeah.
Because we had a long night. We'll leave it at that. But
you were over you were in like 86th Street or something. Where did you used to live?
You were in 82 Flats.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I scooped you up.
we were
down.
driving down Meridian and there was construction and there were cones down the middle. And I go, I bet you won't hit one of those. He goes, and this cone goes flying into someone's front yard. I'm like, okay.
Well, hypothetically, that would be hilarious if that happened, but it didn't.
I don't know, like doing something different. I'd be curious to see what you guys have to say.
Man, for me, it's going to be like the most cliche answer. I wish I would have found Spot sooner than I did because, I had 2 big boy jobs before I found Spot. I was in inside sales for 2 years and then outside sales for almost, 5 years. And then I found Spot. My only gripe would be is I wish I would have found it sooner.
There's a few accounts that got away that come to mind that I wish I would have, that maybe they went to someone else in the company and I said, hey, you know what? I give a nice spin, let them have a crack at it. And I do have some regrets there but back to that whole tunnel vision thing, it's like I had so much going on. It's like it was just easy to say, yeah, go ahead, pass that on to someone else. I would say my biggest regrets are some of those accounts that didn't quite flourish.
Didn't get the same spot experience.
Probably some that you realized that you like there was just too much. I had like one in particular that I was just too much time invested in, and when that one it changed, went a different path. It ultimately led to my team growing, doubling in size, hiring more people, getting more busy. And
Yeah, I remember your first growth period.
that was, and that I still have that. I'll drum it up at some point, but talk about getting like 100, or it was like 120 or 150 loads a week in 1 week by a one-man team. And Shank sent the email out like, congrats. Everybody should strive to be more like this.
Craig Hunter.
Like, I did it.
Let's look at those numbers again.
I actually sent Craig an email this past week. So we went through this period of like when we did the stretch goals. And it was like, okay, hey, here's your actual versus expectation. It's like 2015, 2016. And I remember Craig was expected to do or on pace like 300 shipments. Everyone's kind of has their softball stretch goal, myself included. I'll admit that. Craig was supposed to move 400 loads that month. He's like going for 700. I'm like, who is this psychopath?
Dale's at like 415. It's like, wow, man, really ballsy, man.
As we get close here to winding down, it's been fun to sit around and talk. And to walk through this office has been amazing to see the memories. I mean, probably the bathroom brings back the most memories. The elevator floor.
Oh, yes.
And
That water machine right there.
if you say 15 years, what are you most proud of?
Honestly, for me, we've like done everything we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's the
The
one
right
thing.
way.
We did it the right way. We held to our standard in the easiest circumstances and the most stressful circumstances. You know, we did the little things right, which it sounds simple to respond to an email, to answer the phone, to give updates, good or bad, but it's us just sticking to those simple things and doing what's right for our business and our customers' business. And being able to hold true to that and say that is amazing.
Yeah, because that wasn't easy.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, 2021 was difficult.
Brutal.
I'd agree with Dan. I mean, I think the follow through, what we've set out to accomplish over the past 15 years, it's like responding to a prospect email at 10 p.m. at night and closing the account and doing all the right things because their other provider failed them. It's like, it's kind of what set us apart, but it's what we talked about as, friends and coworkers, but we really proved it right when we actually followed through and did what we said we were going to do. I think that speaks volumes to why we're at where we are today.
Yeah, the relationships for me, the people that I've met along the way. I mean,
You've learned how to kiss on the cheek.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
In the French culture, it is a custom to kiss on each cheek, and I thought we were going in for a kiss here, and
you're a married man.
couldn't have it. But I have customers that, God forbid I'm not doing this tomorrow, or they're not doing their positions tomorrow, but I will still stay in contact with them, and people in this room, that I will stay in touch with them the rest of my life. So I mean, I wouldn't do anything different. This has been a hell of an experience.
Yeah, you do become the bond. Like anytime we're out, I mean, you laugh start to finish. You get made fun of, or you make fun of, and we eat great food and have a good time. But it's like that coming up part. It's like,
this job has taught me to have thicker skin.
Goodness.
You better be able to dish it if you.
Thank you if you dish it.
You mentioned something. It's like going out and just like laughing, just nonstop. That's what it is. I mean, we go out, we just have so much fun, and that's the same mentality at work too.
and accountability too.
Yeah.
I'm just proud of the journey. Like all of us at this table, for the most part, $30, $40 million to $1 billion. And that wasn't through acquisitions. We didn't take any shortcuts. That's truly organic growth. And that's something nobody can take away from us. Like, no offense to these newer hires and the newer folks on board, but they'll never understand. Like, we can tell them about it. It was just different, and not in a bad way. It's just, we were a different company. And if you would have gone back to back in 2013 when I started, or 2012 when you started, and you said, hey, in about a decade, this is going to be $1 billion company.
Yeah.
A year in revenue.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. That is true.
I mean, it's truly remarkable. I think it's truly unmatched, not only within the industry, but many companies to grow organically like that.
When I interviewed, he's like, I want to be $1 billion company. I'm like,
That's
okay.
right.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Elsener.
How much are we doing now? 30? Okay. Yeah, we'll get there.
Do you know what he told me?
What?
He said he wanted a jumbo jet. He's like, he's like,
We know
how
we've
much money
made
do
it.
you want to make? And I told him, I want to make X amount of dollars a year. He's like, you know what I want? What? He said, I want a jumbo jet. I said, all right, that's something.
What about you, Robert?
So I would say the team I've been able to build, not just me alone, but me and Brian. It's been awesome to watch from being the first carrier sales rep to starting my own team and being very successful in that for 6-7 years, and then now to kind of leave that, and obviously that team's still a cog in the machine, but to be able to grow it as big as we have, where we're booking well over 20,000+ loads a month, servicing them, allowing our sales team to go out and get more business. It's definitely been really fun and unique to be able to build that team.
20,000 loads a month.
When he started back
percent?
there, it was a couple thousand, 1,000, and then now to see it today, it's been like the work you've done has been amazing. We drew the department, drew the type, everything. Like, we did it very scientific. To see it today is pretty amazing. So,
You're
That's right.
You're at 70
Trust the process.
How many times have we heard trust the process? Trust the process. Okay, don't trust the goddamn process.
What are we doing?
Boom, that's pretty bad. Trust the process.
You see my heart barely beating.
how about you?
I think the thing that I'm most proud of, or like just part of the story, is to kind of like what Robert Eddie said. I always have to say first and last name with it.
His name's Ricky Bobby, but
Ricky Bobby. Yeah. But kind of like what you said on, like, to be able to see like the next chapter of people coming in and impacting the business. Like, that's been the coolest part. Like, just transitioning it out of sales on a daily basis, like seeing you all still being successful, continuing to grow, your team's growing, but then also seeing the 10 years ago, 2014, when I started, we would feed the entire office.
White Castle.
We now have 5 different offices, right? However many different floors. Like I bet the catering order for a spot provided lunch is a lot different. 10 crave cases.
Half of that counter was just your pods food.
Yeah, that was just me and Evan.
Yeah.
Evan and
2
I.
crave cases each. Evan and I. Yeah, come on.
Bill crave case. The Saturday morning staple.
It was, Mr. Money.
Mr. Money was my nickname
Yeah.
at 16th in Illinois.
At the White Castle.
At the White Castles. Clarify.
That was, we would get White Castle if IU won.
If IU won.
And then if IU lost, then Elsener would get White Castle. Like, Shank would get White Castle on account of IU winning, and then Elsener's like, "Oh, IU lost. Let's celebrate with White Castle."
Yeah.
So there was a stint in the fall where it
Way
was
too much
White Castle
Way too much.
Mondays.
Yeah.
But I always say to the team, move quietly with focused energy to grow a story. And like, if you look at this story, it's been with we did it quiet, a lot of focus, a ton of energy. And so to see where it is today has been cool. And not just that we're the size, it's that we did it the right way. We did it with science. We did it with data. We were so addicted and obsessed with these people. We talk about routing guides at night for dinner, and to see that and to bootstrap the hell out of it. That addiction to making that bootstrap happen is hard. Like, it is hard. There were days where you didn't even know if you were going to survive, and you're like, and so like, you guys all coming in and being part of that journey has been it's a testament to you guys. But that we're all sitting here today is fun, and sitting down together and having dinner and seeing everybody with families and kids and all the changes that have happened is cool. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Here's
Thank you.
15.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
15 more. Our next venture is a restaurant.
20,000.
I like food. Yeah, I like food.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Remember when old Brett throat
That work 'em.
We'll do a 20-year podcast.
And that's a wrap for More Than a Broker. You heard firsthand accounts from industry experts and Spot's hardworking individuals, revealing a culture of collaboration and innovation. For more information about Spot, our service offerings, our people and culture, our job postings, and more, check us out online at spotinc.com. That is spotinc.com. Thank you for listening and for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep striving to be more than a broker.